Hey, welcome back to another episode of Mixing a Prog Album Live, where we are getting really close to finished with AfterWinter's second album called Boundless. Today we are going to be continuing to work on track 11, which is called Absolution, and that is the final track on the album. So we are getting really close to finished with this thing, which is awesome. Want to send out a couple of thanks here right at the beginning of the episode. Of course, we got to start with, if you are one of our new subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing. We really hope that you enjoy what you see and what you hear on this channel. We've got plenty of interesting stuff, hopefully, to come. We still got several episodes left in this series to finish this song off and then put the finishing touches on the other songs. So hopefully you will very much enjoy those subscriptions, and hopefully YouTube will notify you whenever we're doing a live stream so that you can come hang out with us. That would be awesome. Thank you as well to all of the people who have been subscribed for a long time. You can't really thank one without thanking the other. We've been a band for something like 5, closing in on 6 years now, so every bit of support that we've gotten over that time has been absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much. Today is episode 35. Can't remember if I mentioned that already, but man, if by chance any of you have watched every episode leading up to this, I kind of want to know, like, if any of you have gotten to this point because you've watched the entire series up to here, you've just blown my mind, because this is a lot of content. This is a lot of stuff to follow, and I think we've only had a couple of episodes that have been slightly shorter than an hour, so every episode has been, like, at least close to an hour, which means you've watched, like, 34 plus hours of this. So if by chance any of you have watched all of this, thank you so much for that time commitment, because that is insane. But I hope you have enjoyed watching this album kind of shape up and kind of coming along this journey with me to see how this album became the way it is. All right, I think that's enough blabbing. Let's get away from the big dumb face and go to the small dumb face. Yeah, that's better. Looking at our Logic screen here, we are, of course, looking at the session for Absolution, where we left off Tuesday. And we need to finish off our context mix. That is where we are at the moment. So the last thing we did in the previous stream was we made sure that all of our submasters and master buses were peaking no higher than -7. And then as soon as they all were at the proper amount, we turned them off. So now we need to redo a context mix using those master faders, get everything back to sounding at least decent so that we can tell what's going on, and then we get into chunk 2, which is sound detail. So let's make sure that everything is working and then just get right on into it. I'll play a little bit, and you guys should be hearing bass drum and snare drum here. Yeah, looks like that should be working. As always, if something seems to not be working, please don't be afraid to let me know in the comments. If my mic is off, if you see my mouth moving and you're not hearing anything, I probably have no idea that's the case. So don't be afraid to tell me if you think something's not working right. All right, let's just jump up there to the chorus. That's probably not a bad place to get going with everything. And we'll start turning things back on one by one. Okay, I think we're getting there on that. Yeah. Just trying to get everything set fairly well. We've definitely got some spots where vocals seem loud in one place but then quiet in another, which is, of course, a volume detail thing that we're going to be looking at. I'm losing the bass guitar pretty often, too, so that's something we're going to want to pay attention to in sound detail. That tends to happen a lot in down-tuned songs. This one is one of the drop C songs on the album, and basically the lower you tune, the lower in the frequency range the rhythm guitars take up just naturally, which means they're going to cover the bass guitar more and more. It's one of the kind of dangers, I guess, if you want to call it that, of down tuning real far, is that you start to lose your bass player. And seems like for most metal bands that doesn't really seem to be a problem. Starting right around Metallica's And Justice for All, you know, it seemed like bands were more and more okay with, like, can't hear the bass, that's fine. In fact, it's like, that's the standard for metal albums. We don't need to hear the bass player, but that is not the case for AfterWinter. I forgot about our nature sounds. Let's make sure those are sitting okay. Yeah, because we turned those quite a bit up, seems like. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll leave those there for now. All right, our next step is to turn on the limiter. Several of you probably know about this already. We mix with the limiter on, so we have a pretty good idea of what mastering will do to the song, so that if it is destroying any of our dynamics, i.e. parts of the song that are quiet because they're supposed to be, we can make sure we maintain that, and then we turn the limiter back off before we export. All right, so that concludes chunk number 1. That's also going to make the song way louder now. So we need to get now into sound detailing, which is usually making sure that every part of the song sounds the way you want it to. The bass drum sounds right, the snare sounds right, blah, 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 blah. Luckily, we have literally the entire album prior to this song of work we've already done shaping these sounds. So all we need to do is check to make sure that they still sound the way we want them to and that the effects are all doing what we're trying to get them to do. So let's jump out to the chorus here, and I'm going to start checking. Let's see, the bass drum is probably first. The only thing we need to check here is the multipressor. We're definitely going to want to check this multipressor in the intro as well. How do I move on from this pain? Am I allowed to stumble on, though it remains? Here it says, I am changed by this sorrow. Yeah, so I'd say that's doing about what we want it to. I forgot to turn my speakers down after I turned the limiter on. That was loud. So on single hits, we're not seeing this move very much, but if there's bass drums that start to come closer and closer together, this will compress a little more. This should especially be hitting decently well in the intro here, where we've got a lot of pretty quick double bass. Yeah. Right, so we're compressing harder and harder the more double bass there is, so we're preventing the buildup of low frequencies. Okay, I'm good with the snare as is. That's definitely something we're going to want to check again when we're getting into the mid-range bandpass. We're okay with that now. I don't think we need our smash and grab here because nothing is causing this to jump above -7. So let's take a look at our toms. All of the individual channels are okay, but I want to take a look at the stuff that's on the submaster. Where's a good spot we can listen to lots of toms? Yeah, probably there in the intro, looks like. definitely got a lot of mid and low mid frequencies jumping out in that between the rhythm guitars and the bass and the drums there. Okay, let's take a look at our compressor. Good example of a spot where the vocals are way too loud, but I think we got our toms. All right, let's take a look at our overhead. So we've got a compressor here in smash mode. Let's jump a little forward here. How do I move on from this pain? Am I allowed to stumble on, though it remains irritating? I am changed by this sorrow, and I don't want behind and start again. Hurt will end. Moving on doesn't mean you have to forget. Okay, good with that. Let's go ahead and turn the vocals down a decibel or maybe half a decibel. Lead and backgrounds. We'll go a whole decibel and see if that's too much. We'll be fine-tuning that later, of course, but we just want to make sure we're maintaining okay context. Okay, our Soothe plugin may not be needed. We'll be keeping an ear out for that. That is for any spot where the hi-hat gets a little bit too aggressive. I think we're good at the moment. Okay, next up is our drum crush. This is parallel compression for the drums. This is a special bus where everything in the drums, including its reverb channels, are coming to get compressed really, really hard. Mixing this super compressed signal underneath the uncompressed signal gives us a nice punch on the drums. This is currently set where it has been set for all the other songs, so we want to give a quick listen to make sure that it's okay. This is going to pretty dramatically increase the amount of reverb we're hearing on the snare, including just the general volume of the snare, and the drums to a certain extent as well are going to become a lot louder here. So keeping in mind that the drums are probably louder than we want them, do they sound all right? Yes, indeed. Is there a reverb on that synth, or is that just how it sounds naturally? There is not a reverb on that synth, so that must just be how it sounds naturally. I was kind of curious to hear it with less reverb, but that appears to be just how the sound sounds. All right, so the next thing we need to do, now that we've got the parallel compression on the drums, is we need to check the overall peak level of the drums master. We need this to be no higher than -7, and just in that little tiny bit we listened to, it's already peaking at -6.7, which is higher. So we need to do a listen through of the entire song, start to finish, so that we can give this thing a chance to find the highest peak. I want to keep an eye on that drums master so that we can see where it hits its highest peak, so that we can adjust all of these levels so that we're hitting -7. Then we can turn on our Black Salt Audio drum bus, which is kind of our final little extra sprinkle of magic on the drum channel. Make sure that's still at -7, and then we move on. So let's take a listen here. we don't need to listen to the nature bit. So we ended up having our highest peak there in the very end thing, the thing marked beginning question mark. Oh, how artsy fartsy. So we ended up at negative 5.8. So quite a bit higher. Not as high as the other songs. Most of the other songs ended up peaking somewhere around negative 4 right here. So we still ended up a little lower overall, but we do still need to reduce. So we want to treat this as if it's 5.5, basically. So we want to come down 1.5 decibels on all of our submasters and our drum crush. And this should put us at a little less than negative 7. Oh, come on now. There we go. Overall, we can turn on our Black Salt Audio drum bus here, which looks like this. This is running in dual mono. This is just giving our drums a little bit of extra smack and also crisp clarity. So we want to make sure that with this on, we're still hitting negative 7. So we want to play, we can just play that little end bit again, which is where our highest peak was, to make sure that that hits 7 or right around there. So we hit 7.2 right there. So we can actually bring this up just a little bit. Oh, whoops. That was dumb. Not negative 1, negative 0.1. There we go. Okay, there's one more thing in the drums that I want to check on while we're here. In the toms, there are a couple of points here in the ending where Eli's doing kind of like a build-up on the toms, and we suddenly get like a whole bunch of cymbal bleed. I think one of them is here, and I think I know why it's happening. Notice it even kind of goes with the tom hits. It's like the cymbals go s right there. And then another one is over here. The same thing happens. And if I had to guess, that is our drum leveler doing that. So just out of curiosity, if we turn the drum leveler off on these two channels, does that go away? Now it also makes the toms a lot quieter. Now pretty much the reason that that's happening is because the drum leveler is making those toms a lot louder. But I think what's happening there is that because he's doing a build-up and this drum leveler is kind of getting rid of that dynamic by working to make all of them the same, we're also getting a little bit of that cymbal jumping up. So I wonder if just for those two fills, we can engage this noise gate right here and maybe help ourselves get rid of some of that. Now here's a question. Is one of the drums doing it more than the other? So like if we mute rack tom 2, does it go away? Okay, no, but it sounded the same. So I wonder then if we mute rack tom 3 instead, does it go away? So it's definitely both channels doing that. All right, well, let's see if we can automate. Hey, there's Sam. Wow, this mix is so good, it made my dog enroll in college. That's a new one. Wait, you don't have a dog. Or do you? Do you? Now we need to know. Let's see. Looking for the right thing here. Okay, what's going on here? How come I'm not seeing the thing I'm trying to get? I want gate range. Okay, yeah, I don't think that's what I was looking for. Gate range. Let's do channel 1 though. Unless gate range is not an option. Yeah, there it is up at the top. Channel 1 gate range. That's odd. We're not in mono. I wonder why it's acting like there are two channels. There shouldn't be. Sam says he has a dog. Okay, so hopefully this will give us what we want. We're going to put a pretty hefty gate on, but just for those two fills. Because the rest of it's fine. That reverb clapped so hard it made my fridge blink. Oh, that's great. I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the day now. Just picturing a big old fridge with eyes, hearing this song and blinking really hard. Okay, now I'm not for sure that that fixes the problem, so let's make sure. Okay, well, the answer is no. So another question now, because it's saying channel 1 and channel 2, do we need to do a gate, adjust the gate range? Oh, wait a minute. No, that's what it's claiming, the gate range. Yeah. Do we need to do this on both channels? We got a channel 1 gate range and a channel 2 gate range. Do we need to do it on both in order for it to actually activate? Or is this just not going to help at all? We'll check. So apparently the answer is I'm on the wrong track here entirely, and that is not going to help. Okay, well, I got a different idea too. So we need to delete both of these envelopes. Because that was not the right thing. Okay, and instead what we are going to automate is the compression level. So again, we have a channel 1 compression and a channel 2 compression. I'm not sure why. But at the moment, we are at 80% compression, and let's just turn it off. So 0% compression, and we're going to have to turn these up. Why are we jumping right from +2 to -1? That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to have to turn the volumes of these up to compensate, but at least we should get rid of that weird cymbal bleed problem. Yeah, okay, weird. I have no idea why it's refusing to go to 0, but whatever. I guess -1 is theoretically as good. So as you can hear, no cymbal bleed, but the toms do kind of disappear there. So let's combat that by putting a volume envelope on both of these two and just physically turning them up. We still end up with a little bit of cymbal bleed issue, but I think it's okay, because at least it's not going with the toms. So it doesn't end up being near as prominent that that's what's going on. We're going to need to do that over here too. Okay, and that didn't mess with any of the rest of the song, just those two spots, so we're good to go there. All right, let's continue moving on. So the next thing we need to check is our bass. Mostly checking compression levels here. So the first thing we have is just a stock Logic compressor here, which we should be seeing hit somewhere around -5. Yep, all good there. Let's check our multipressor here as well. Let's jump up to a chorus, I think. acting as a safety net in that case. It's not activating very much, but when it activates, it does compress a little bit. So we don't want to increase the compression level too much on that. All right, we also on the bass master channel have a little bit of EQ that is mid-range bandpass stuff. It's a little boost at 250 to give us more bass, a little cut at 350 for cutting some mud, and a little boost at 3500 to give us a little bit more definition and clarity. I'm kind of feeling like we may want to boost this a little bit further even. How do I move on from this pain? So yeah, boosting the 250 and the 3500 both helped a little bit. I'm already hearing the bass a little better out the studio monitors here, but we'll know more about that when we get to the mid-range bandpass. I think for now, I'm good with that. So let's move into the guitars. We have 5 rhythm guitar tracks here. One is literally just a James center that happens for like, I don't know, 10 seconds right at the very beginning of the song and then cuts out and doesn't come back. The other 4 are our normal 2 James, 1 on the left, 1 on the right, 2 me, 1 on the left, 1 on the right. So we want to check our multipressors here to make sure that they're doing what we want. We'll take a look at the James left and the me left. We want to go to a section that actually has some palm muting in it. Let's take a look at the end of the chorus going into the keyboard solo. So that's doing exactly what we want. So you see that all of the channels are bypassed here except one, which is looking at 200 hertz and below for both guitars, which means it's particularly targeting palm mutes. It's not trying to change anything else about the guitar signal, just that when we start palm muting, which naturally creates a lot of lower bass frequencies, it's tamping those back down so that the guitar doesn't suddenly get all woofy and gross. Didn't activate until those palm mutes started, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so good to go there. So looking at the rhythm guitars master now, we have another multipressor. Again, now we're targeting all 4 frequencies in this case, but again, this lower one, 160 and down, is still looking to get palm muted frequencies from the buildup of all 4 rhythm tracks playing together. But we still don't want to see any of these doing too much compression, particularly the upper 3.
Doesn't mean you have to forget.
So that's about as much as we'd want to see from any of those upper ones, where we were at there at the end of the chorus. And then I did actually lessen the amount of compression, or rather I lessened the threshold so that we're activating compression a little bit less often there. So should be good on that. I think we're good. Let's take a look at our regular compressor, which is not doing a whole lot, running in dual mono, but just looking to make sure that there isn't anything from all 4 tracks building up together that makes the volume jump. So we shouldn't be seeing much here. Maybe up to 1 or at the most 2, just in general, we shouldn't be seeing this jump way up. So again, safety net, big safety net compressor there. It's not really doing much to change the sound, just helping us grab things that are particularly loud and pulling them back down. All right, next we have an EQ. Our cut right here at 70 is to help the kick drum and the bass guitar cut through the rhythm guitars a little better. Our cut at 280 is a mid-range bandpass thing meant to help mud, and our cut at 6,000 here is for a little bit of harshness. Nice. Yes. So those are all very important cuts. You never realize quite how much room the rhythm guitars take up until you start cutting stuff to make other things cut through more. So I actually turned the rhythm guitars up a little bit there so that we're still hearing them while everything else cuts through. Last thing there is another channel EQ, boosting at 6,500 for a little bit of extra grit, and doing a tiny little boost at 150 just to make sure that our other like low, mid, and low cuts aren't taking too much kind of energy from that low end of the guitars. We still want them to have that full bottom end. We just don't want it to be sacrificing bass drum or bass guitar to get it. Yep, good with all that, I think. I think all the clean guitars are probably okay sounding as they are. This is pretty much the same stuff we had on the Distance clean guitars. I'm hearing what I want to hear when they pop through, which is just in the two choruses. So let's take a look at our clean guitars master. We have a multi-presser going on here. How do I move on from this pain? Let's try the Studio VCA with soft distortion on this. I'd like a little bit of a rounder bottom end on these clean guitars, I think. How do I move on from this pain? Am I allowed to stumble on, though it a couple of little EQ changes there. Again, we'll know more about that with the mid-range bandpass. All right, yep, our pianos and our organs sound good as is. Let's just get our master channel set up good. I think we can continue listening to a chorus here, right? Yeah, most of where the piano is the chorus. Okay, so yeah, we had multi-pression, regular compression, and a little bit of EQ here, which is to help the piano sit with the strings better. So we have this going on in the strings, but opposite. So we're in the piano boosting 600, cutting 1,000, and then in the strings, we're going to cut 600, boost 1,000, so they can kind of both sit there where they're supposed to. Speaking of strings, here we are with those. Yes, we basically just have the same thing. So we have an EQ that's cutting in the middle only, a big kind of mid to lower mid cut right in the center, so it pushes the strings out to the sides a little better. And we got multi-pressor, regular compressor, and the EQ that we were just talking about. Let's check that.
How do I move on from this pain? Am I allowed to stumble on, though it remains irritating? I am changed by this sorrow, and I don't want to pretend. I will leave this grief behind and start again. Hurt will end. Moving on doesn't mean you have to forget. Pain. Am I allowed to stumble on, though it remains? I am changed by this sorrow.
Okay, I think we got that. Now, our big orchestra is definitely going to take some work, because obviously all of this is new. None of this stuff is in any of the other songs, so we're going to need to be paying special attention to EQs and compressors and this sort of thing. Let's go ahead and come back to this just for a second, so we can get the rest of the, the leads and the vocals and stuff done a little bit quicker, so we'll leave that for last. So let's jump out to the leads now. So we got the keyboard solo. Both keyboard channels have an EQ and a soothe, and the guitars all have EQ, multi-pression, and soothe. Yeah. So we've heard the keyboard solo a few times now in checking other things, and I'd say it sounds pretty good. Yeah, there's nothing about the keyboard sound that I would change there. Okay, so let's check the guitar solo for the same. I definitely want to look at the multi-pressor. Yep, I think we're good with that. So now we have kind of the normal stuff here, multi-pressor, regular compressor, and channel EQ for the leads. Let's check the multi-pressor and the keyboard solo first here. make sure that when the other guitar tracks are playing there, we're not compressing too hard. Now, the only reason we need this compressor at all is because of that spot where the two other guitars come in. Again, kind of safety netting. And then we have just a little tiny boost at 1200 for these. You know what? I don't particularly like what it's doing for the keyboard, but I do like what it's doing in the guitar. Let's have that shut off during the keyboard solo. Oh, I didn't look at what peak that was. That is peak 3. Peak 3 gain. So we'll have that little boost jump in there for the guitar solo, but not until then. And of course it won't give me 0. There we go. Okay. All right, moving into the vocals. I do think I'm going to turn Majennica up just a little bit. My vocals are still like almost too loud, whereas Majenica's vocals still seem like just a tad quiet. Good with how each one of our vocals sound just kind of generally, so we just want to look at the main, the master again. So lead vocals master, we got a de-esser, then we've got multi-press-in here. Let's take a look at, let's see, where are the most lead vocals? The end of the chorus, I think, is the only spot where both her and I sing? No, I guess not. Okay, I guess where she's saying that final line is in the background vocals. Okay, well, we'll check your chorus anyway.
How do I move on from this pain? Am I allowed to stumble on, though it remains? Here it says, I am changed by this sorrow.
We'll go ahead and check verse 2 as well, since her voice is out there.
Normal is gone. Where once stood my sanctuary, a cemetery. I can't run or dull my senses. To face this emptiness, I must experience it.
Okay, and we don't have a regular compressor here because, again, there's no point where both my vocals and her vocals are singing at exactly the same time. At least on the lead tracks there isn't. But we do have another little EQ here that's mid-range bandpass stuff. Little cut at 300 for mud, little boost at 4000 for clarity. Background vocals all good, so we've got our de-esser again, we've got multi-pression here. Yeah, we basically just need to hear one of those things in the chorus. have compression here. Again, it's a safety net, but there are a lot of vocals going on throughout here. And then another channel EQ here. Yeah, kind of same thing. Cut right around 300 for muddiness. Boost a little above 4,000 for clarity. That seems a little harsh, the boost especially. Let's check that. I'm pretty good with the nature sounds. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to multi-press at least. So let's jump out to where those nature sounds are. Yeah, I want to hear after the music has stopped. Okay. Don't want the expander doing anything, we just want to compress. Nice. All good there. Okay, so we just need to do our orchestra. That's kind of the big thing at the moment, is getting this orchestra to have all of the correct EQs and just to see if any of them need compression. The effects that are on them currently are what I did in tracking, which is probably, a lot of that is probably pulled in from Paramnesia. I think these are the same tracks and the same sounds we used for the big orchestral section in Missing Piece. So a lot of this is probably from that. But we're going to want to check. We're going to be doing a lot of things in solo mode here, so let me make sure my stream mic stays soloed. Okay. And then we're going to jump back to where we're looking at all of this stuff. Okay, so let's take a look at the harp first. It's a little bit too far right. I feel like I want to pull that a little closer center. We'll push it right just a little. Got a thing where sometimes the lower frequencies are a little loud. Let's multi-press. Yeah. Yeah. Much better. That's neat. By that point of the song, so much is going on. I don't even think I registered that the harp had a an octave thing going on right there. Okay, so we got two first violin tracks, a left and a right. They're probably doing the same thing. Just got a little bump at 450 here. Both of them have that, yep. Yeah. At least in solo, they don't seem to have any particular area where certain frequencies are jumping out. There was a spot where I think he hit a key a little bit harder on the left side, but I think that'll be okay. Let's see what the second violins are doing. If I remember right, I think it's like a pizzicato version of the same thing. Okay. Ooh. There was a wrong note there. Did you guys hear that? Ooh. We're going to leave a wrong note on this album. Ooh, that's a no-no. I think there's enough going on in here that nobody's going to catch that, but it's kind of funny that it's there. As far as frequency stuff, I don't think I'm hearing anything weird here. We've just got a high pass. Yeah, let's kind of take a look at that. Why are we not seeing the analyzer? Here we go. Yeah, we're not even down in this area anyway. Why do we have the 450 boost? Interesting. All right, next we have 3 viola tracks. There's a central one and then a left and a right, and I don't think they're all doing the same thing. This is one of the parts, actually, that I think I wanted to turn down a little bit. But I think as far as, like, compression or EQ or anything like that, I think I'm good with it. Next, we have a stereo cello. Or I should say 2 cellos, a left and a right. Okay, these may need multipressor. We've also got a left and right contrabass. Which is just hitting the root notes over and over, but it sounds like these have certain notes that are doing a lot more bass too, so multi-pression here as well. Let's copy from the cellos and just adjust. also got 2 French horn tracks. So a couple of things. We've definitely got a couple of points where we're getting a really high buzzy frequency jumping in. I also just saw kind of a weird thing in the bottom. Oh yeah, that is an old version of the channel EQ. Let's get rid of that and reset that. The high pass is acting kind of weird on that. Yeah, that's better. So I want to set, let's try 6,000, and let's do a high shelf and actually pull down on the high frequencies just a little bit there. And then we're probably going to need to multi-press with special attention to the high frequencies as well. Yeah, it's a fine line. That's a neat part, though. Okay. Almost got something going there. I don't want to soften it, but I just want to make sure that those notes that have that kind of extra sizzly high end aren't too distracting. Okay. Happy with that for now. I think the last thing that we've got here is a choir. This is called church choir. Kind of surprised we're pushing at 500. Let's push a little higher than that. Yeah, not very long that. Let's put a regular compressor on that, I think. And again, get a little bit of a warmer bottom end on that. Yeah, there's not going to be much attack on this, so let's go for a quicker attack. Looking for around 1 until the lower voices come in. And then more like 2. Okay. So let's roll with that for now. Okay, and then on our master track for all of that, again, we've got that same central EQ pushing stuff out to the sides. Let's take a look at our full multi-pression. Oh. Gotta hit solo. that channel EQ for now. Okay. Getting pretty close to something good here. So I think we've got every channel now. We've got stuff sounding the way we want it to, we're pretty sure. So the next thing that we need to do is turn on our mid-range bandpass, which is an EQ all the way at the end of the chain. This is the last thing that everything hits, cutting out our lows and our highs and leaving us with only the frequency range that every single speaker in existence has, so that we can make sure everything is slotting together right, especially that orchestra. The big orchestra thing we were just listening to at the end, something that none of the other songs have, so we definitely want to make sure that that slots in, and that might be a little difficult. So let's give a listen to this thing with that on, and I'll be making adjustments throughout, and then we'll probably close out. It's a good spot to close out, so all we'll have left after that is the the volume detail, rather, where we're going through and actually making things the correct volume at every moment throughout the song. Okay, so let's take a listen to our mid-range bandpass and see what we hear. Vocals are pretty hot, but I think they are in full quality as well in that section. Let's pull a little bit more 300.
How do I move on from this pain? Am I allowed to stumble on, though it remains? Here it says, I am changed by this sorrow, and I don't want to pretend.
Nice. Might be a little harsh high end. Just a hair. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, there's one more section I want to check again. I was really focused on being able to hear the bass guitar during the guitar solo, so I didn't really pay attention to the guitar solo itself. It was probably fine, because it wasn't like catching my ear and turning my ear away from what I was doing, but I want to check and make sure. I think the orchestra was okay. The choir was very loud. When the choir came in, it kind of like overtook everything else, but I think it was also doing that in full quality, so I turned the volume down. That's another thing we're going to want to check. So a couple of little things to check here. Yeah, I think solo's good. Let's go back to full quality and check the volume of that orchestra. Or the choir, rather. There it is. So I'd say the choir was a fairly appropriate volume just there. Let's hear it in the mid-range bandpass again. Okay, so we just need to lessen that boost that we had in the mid-range on that, and I think we're good. Yeah. Awesome. All right, so that leaves us in a pretty good spot to start next episode. Now, if you remember, too, we definitely need to mess around with the end of this song, too. So I have at least 2 different ideas for how that ending may need to go. So when we finish this mix, we're going to need to do a couple of different things. The first one is, the first idea is to have it play pretty much as we just heard it, but once that kind of the beginning question mark pops up, fade that out rather than letting it go that entire thing, letting it just kind of slowly fade out and the nature sounds kind of overtake it. And that would be one idea. That would be the original idea for the album ending, what we had in mind when we wrote it. The other idea would be to mute the nature sounds entirely, don't fade out that thing at the very end, export a version like that, and then in the mastering, cut that part, the very, very end, cut it off, import the nature sounds separately, and have the big C that we hit at the end of the orchestra thing, have that fade out into the nature sounds, and then have that beginning thing almost like it's on a radio or something happen during the nature sounds. I'm just not sure. Not sure yet. We'll figure that out when we get there. The good part is we don't have to make that decision until we're talking about mastering, basically. As long as we export both versions here, we can mess with that in mastering. All right, but that does conclude chunk number 2. So when we come back, we will be able to jump directly into volume detail, volume automation, making sure that all the things are loud enough or quiet enough when they hit. You guys probably know that process now because, again, we've done it a bunch of times. This will be the 11th time we've done it. So won't be any new things there other than just the new challenges presented by the song itself. But already, it's sounding really cool. It's sounding a lot like the other ones. We just got to get all the balance things here and there worked out, and then we will have first drafts of everything on the album, which is very exciting. So, yeah. We should be back tomorrow afternoon. It'll probably be more like 1 o'clock. right around there that we'll be back to start in on that volume detail, but still in the afternoon. So hope to catch everybody there for that. We will be digging into this one, and depending on how much time we have, maybe we will even get to that finished first draft of this one tomorrow. It's hard to say. This is a pretty long song, and there's a lot of stuff going on in it, so maybe not. We'll see. But hopefully we'll be back tomorrow. Anyway, whether you're watching right now, whether you were watching before, whether you're watching this in the future when it's not live, I and everybody in AfterWinter appreciates every second of time that you spend checking this stuff out. We hope you like what you see, what you hear, whether you're just hanging out here in the chat or whether you're listening to the songs, streaming it on your favorite streaming service, or whether you bought a CD and you're listening to it that way. We couldn't possibly appreciate all the support more, and we sincerely do mean that. I know I say it at the end of every episode, but genuinely, we mean that. Thank you guys so much for every bit of support you give the band over the course of all this time. We hope you're looking forward to this album because we are getting really close to having it ready to go, which is super exciting for everybody here in the band. I know I'm super excited. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm sure everybody in the band is ready to have this thing out and in your hands and hear the finished product. So yes, again, hope to catch all you guys tomorrow for an afternoon stream where we can get this thing even closer to done. We'll catch you guys then.